What if I told you that Disney's Snow White remake isn't just a flop, but the beginning of the end for the Disney brand itself? Sounds dramatic, right? But stick with me here. The most controversial decision in Disney's history, casting Rachel Ziegler as Snow White, may just be the biggest blunder this company has ever made. The shocking truth? It's not the movie itself that's the problem. It's the star they chose to lead it. But what happened to Disney's golden child? And more importantly, how did one actress, Rachel Ziegler, almost single-handedly destroy an entire film franchise?
Let's listen.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
This is the untold story of how Disney's Snow White remake became a PR nightmare, and how Rachel Ziegler's behavior has pushed Disney's brand to the brink of disaster. You're not going to hear this anywhere else. This is the behind-the-scenes breakdown of the chaos surrounding the Snow White remake, and you won't believe who's really to blame. Now let's talk about Disney's bold casting decision. Rachel Ziegler, the breakout star of West Side Story, was cast as Snow White in the live-action remake. On paper, it sounded like a win for diversity and progress. Disney wanted to appeal to a modern, more inclusive audience by choosing an actress who could represent a different cultural background. But here's the thing. Did anyone really think this through? Was casting Rachel Ziegler really the best move, or was it just a cheap attempt to check boxes? Ziegler's casting was marketed as a major win for inclusivity, but it didn't take long for people to start asking, is this the real Snow White? And that's where things got tricky. You see, instead of winning over fans, Ziegler's casting quickly became the subject of heated debate. People who were already skeptical about Disney's live-action remakes weren't thrilled about the idea of Snow White being turned into something modernized. And Ziegler herself didn't help matters with her social media rants. Remember that time she posted, "If you're not voting for Kamala, unfollow me"?
Posting a video where she said, if you're not voting for Kamala, unfollow me. I don't need your business. Telling over half of the audience for her Disney live-action bastardization of Snow White to go fuck themselves.
She basically told half of her audience to take a hike. And guess what happened? They did. People who didn't share her views were alienated in a single tweet. Did Rachel learn from this mistake? Well, let's just say the drama was just getting started. Rachel's identity crisis during the West Side Story promotion was one of the first major signs that things might not go so well. When asked about her Latin roots, she turned what should have been a simple question into a confusing, self-indulgent monologue. Do you speak the language? Does it matter? Do you eat the food? Where do you even come from? It was almost like she was trying to define herself as a cultural chameleon, everywhere and nowhere at the same time. But what does this have to do with Snow White? Well, if you're representing the most iconic princess in history, you'd think you'd want to embody the role with a sense of pride, right? Instead, Rachel seemed more focused on figuring out her identity than actually understanding what it means to play such a beloved character.
I gotta call bullshit when I see bullshit. There's plenty of valid reasons to call her out, and if you want to think that this kind of just goes towards her mindset in general, that's perfectly fine.
Fans saw this, and they didn't like it. It was a PR disaster, and her uncertainty became part of the story instead of just her story. Here's a question for you. If Rachel Ziegler couldn't figure out who she was, how was she supposed to understand Snow White, a character who has represented purity, kindness, and strength for decades? Disney's gamble to put someone with a crisis of identity at the forefront of their most important project was a huge misstep. But what really cemented Rachel's fall from grace was her attitude. In the world of Hollywood, you'd expect an actress given the role of a lifetime, Snow White no less, to be humble, grateful, and professional. But Rachel wasn't exactly playing by those rules. Instead, she began to show an overwhelming sense of entitlement. Case in point, the Academy Awards. Rachel didn't get invited to the 94th Academy Awards despite her movie being nominated for multiple awards. And how did she handle it? She tweeted a sarcastic remark about wearing sweatpants and my boyfriend's flannel while everyone else was walking the red carpet.
I think that Rachel Ziegler is one of the most despised people in the industry right now from a lot of normal people, because what she says, the way that she says it, who she insults, what's going on with Snow White. But at the same time, if I see something that's bullshit, I have to call it out as bullshit.
This wasn't just a public expression of disappointment. It was a tantrum. And guess what? Disney, in all its corporate wisdom, rushed in to fix it. They gave her the invite she desperately wanted, and not just to attend, but to present an award. Suddenly, she felt untouchable. With Disney backing her up, she figured she could get away with anything. But her next PR move would prove just how wrong she was. You'd think being cast as Snow White would be an honor, but Rachel Ziegler seemed to think it was an opportunity to tear down everything the character stood for. When she was asked about the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs movie, she didn't hold back. She called it outdated, and worse, she admitted she was scared by it as a child. Let that sink in. The actress playing Snow White, the character beloved by millions, openly dissed the film that started it all. Imagine how this must have felt to Disney fans who grew up with the original Snow White, who consider that movie to be a masterpiece. Rachel's comments were not just disrespectful, they were downright offensive. But here's the kicker. Rachel wasn't the only one causing problems. There was also the issue of the dwarves. Disney's portrayal of the dwarves in this remake raised eyebrows, and let's just say some fans weren't thrilled. And as if that wasn't enough, Disney had to delay the release and reshoot parts of the film. But was this just about the dwarves? Or was Rachel's behavior the real problem here? Disney has invested over $200 million into this remake, an insane amount of money that's now being flushed down the drain. The delays and reshoots were bad enough, but let's talk about the fan reaction. When the trailer for Snow White dropped, it got 1.3 million dislikes. In a world where trailers rarely get more than a few 100,000, 1.3 million dislikes is practically unheard of. Disney was officially in damage control mode. You see, Disney wasn't just worried about the movie's performance. They were worried about their reputation. The backlash surrounding Rachel Ziegler's casting had already turned Snow White into the most hated remake of all time. But the deeper issue? The fact that the star of this film was turning fans away at every turn. Could Rachel Ziegler have been the one to kill this movie before it even had a chance? By the time Rachel Ziegler finally issued her apology, it was clear to everyone this was not going to fix the damage. Fans immediately saw through the attempt, calling it out for what it was: a shallow PR stunt orchestrated by Disney. The apology felt rehearsed, and no one believed it was coming from the heart. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Disney itself didn't exactly rush to back her up. In fact, it seemed like the studio had rejected her apology before it even had a chance to land. You see, Disney had already been criticized for its handling of the whole situation. They were on the back foot trying to save face, but they knew the damage Rachel had done to the Snow White project couldn't be undone with a few carefully crafted words. Fans weren't just upset with Rachel, they were upset with Disney for continuing to back someone whose actions had hurt the very movie they were trying to promote. What's even more telling is that Disney's PR team never truly leaned into the apology. They didn't really come out to publicly support Rachel in any meaningful way after that moment. It was almost like Disney knew it was too little, too late. Fans were furious, and Disney, despite all the damage control, found itself in a lose-lose situation. Did Rachel really think an apology would turn the tide? Or was it just too obvious that the whole thing was just damage control? The big question now is, can Disney save Snow White? With a reported budget of $200 million and growing negative buzz, this movie needs to make at least $400 million just to break even. But is that realistic? After everything that's gone wrong, can Snow White turn things around? Honestly, it doesn't look good. The backlash continues to build, and the film is only getting more toxic by the day. You can bet Disney executives are sweating. The delays, the reshoots, the million-dollar budget, it's all just a band-aid on a wound that's already deep. Rachel Ziegler, despite her Disney backing, might have just killed this project, and with it, her career. So what do you think? Was Rachel Ziegler's casting always going to be a disaster, or was it her attitude that brought this all crashing down? Is Snow White already a lost cause, or can Disney somehow fix this mess? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, you're not going to find this kind of honest, no-holds-barred take anywhere else. So don't forget to subscribe for more on how Disney's progressive moves might just be the reason for its downfall. See you in the next video.